wear a hat and a flannel shirt.
That's right. How do you do that?
What's up, everybody? We're all here. We're missing Michael today, but we have a special guest today. We have Gene DellaSala from Audioholics. Woo! I'm excited. Gene gets me hyped up.
The reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated.
Yeah,
he's alive and well.
I'm very happy Gene is here. I'm Joe from Joe and Tell. We have Chana D, aka Techno Dad, and Ron from NRD. New record
now
day.
Recording daily.
Hello.
Yeah.
No, new record day.
How you guys feeling? How you guys? How are you, Chana D? How are you feeling, Ron? How are you feeling? And of course, Gene, I'm gonna have to ask you last because there's a little story behind that.
A little bit longer. I'm cool. Had to tell my wife look, I can't just run out to the market to grab some rum because you want to make pina coladas. This is you guys slow down. We're putting everyone at risk. And so we did one big ass shopping event, spent $350. So hopefully we don't have to go for a couple weeks.
There you go.
But you know what was messed up is that people from LA drove up here 6 hours, clean out our store, and then drove back multiple times. We even saw tourists here, or people that we don't, small town, very small town. We've got one confirmed case and I think 29 pending.
And his name is Techno Dad.
It's not me, dude. It's not me. I don't know what I work from home. I'm home. All my events have been canceled, and we did the live stream on Saturday. Thank you, Joe, for showing up. So if you guys didn't know, I was DJing for people and interacting and taking requests, and it was a lot of fun.
Super cool. You're just trying to, liven up.
I would have been DJing anyway at the ski resort, so I figured I can do it at home. I just figured out some OBS stuff and, made it happen.
All right. Yeah, you know what? Actually, I got some groceries this morning, but I didn't get out of the car. Well,
That's nice.
No, I had to get out of the car to get the groceries, but I told them we ordered online, and then we just told them just leave them behind the van. Don't open the van, don't touch anything,
don't touch it.
Put my stuff, walk away, and then I just had gloves. I was all crazy, but yeah, that's what I did. Ron, how you feeling?
Doing okay, man. Daily bike rides helps for sure. So I've been biking more than ever in my whole life. It's I've always, it's funny. I'm an introvert, obviously, and I'm an audiophile, so I listen to music all day. But now that I can't go out, I want to, which is weird. Yeah, so daily bike rides has been helpful. But yeah, knock on wood, we're doing okay. Everybody is healthy. The kids are healthy. My wife is healthy, and we're hanging in there.
Yeah. So Gene, on to you.
Ron, it's almost like being on a cruise ship when you can't get off the boat for a few days. It's that kind of feeling where all of a sudden you want to get off that boat,
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm doing a lot better. I've been feeling good the last couple of days. I'm eating well. I have more energy, and weirdly on Friday the health department pronounced me dead. So
this is a robot version of Gene.
Yeah, I'm glad they cleared that up. I didn't even know about it. I started getting calls and messages from people I didn't even know who they were on Facebook and stuff. But luckily they were wrong, and I'm doing a lot better, and I didn't infect my family, which is good. And hopefully I am coming out of quarantine this week. That's my goal.
Good man.
Yeah. Well, you guys know I've been posting on my YouTube channel. I have family in Minnesota, and it's kind of tough over there. I have a lot of aunts over there, and you guys know my grandmother passed away and from this COVID thing. So that that got real for me very quickly. And now I have a few aunts and an uncle who who have it. So it's still a little bit scary right now, but I'm here. We're all here just to provide content for you guys. We want to make sure that you guys are at home having a good time. And so that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
We're gonna get through this. Just everybody be safe.
Yeah.
You gotta stay positive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hold on. Chana's asking to repost the thumbnail.
Yeah, just give me the thumbnail.
Just repost the video. I put it on my community page. Go ahead and repost that. So how are you guys doing out in the chat over there? You guys seeing the chat here? Let me see here. We have regular guy audio as always.
Always. Tried and true. Regular guy audio.
Yeah. Rocco says, "Hey guys, PSB image T55." I'm not sure exactly.
T55 for. I think they're asking.
Oh, the image speakers, Ron. I don't know if you've seen those.
A lot of people are asking about PSB stuff. I haven't reviewed anything from PSB, but I want to. So yeah,
I got the Alpha P5s right now.
Yeah, they have the bookshelf speaker now. It's like $200 a pair or something. That looks
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah, I got some back there. I need to review. Dwayne Bennett says, "Hi guys, hope you're all well."
What's up, Dwayne?
Confirmed cases. Yeah. Condolences. All right. Well, I got a lot of support, so thank you guys for all the support. What should we do here?
Didn't you have some questions or something you wanted to ask?
Yeah, we have some questions. Real quick, I also want to let you guys know that pretty soon we're gonna be doing more stuff on the Daily HiFi YouTube channel. So make sure to subscribe to that, because eventually we're gonna be doing these on the Daily HiFi YouTube channel, because right now we're just switching off, right? And so people are always like, "Hey, what channel is it on? Like, when is this?" It's always on Monday, 4 p.m. Pacific, and very shortly we should have this all on this Daily HiFi channel. And what we're doing is we're actually having somebody cut up all the videos into shorter videos.
Yep.
So they're like 10-minute clips with just, a question and then a 10-minute answer. So look at that channel, subscribe if you want.
There's a lot. It's all bite-sized content, so you can find a answer to one of your questions. Chances are we've already covered it on a Daily HiFi podcast, so they're all being chopped up and they're being released like one per day. So definitely subscribe up and hit that bell.
There's a good question over there if you want to pop it up. The regular audio guy about buying used gear.
All right, let's see here.
409.
I want to know if Gene would be
the answer to that, from what I've read from CDC guidelines, is that the coronavirus can live on surfaces for up to a couple of days, depending on the type of surface. But they're claiming mail deliveries are fine. So I would say that, going by their guidelines, I would say you're safe to buy used gear. If you get something used from somebody, maybe just let it sit, in the box for a day or two, and you should be fine. If you're really that paranoid, just spray some Lysol on it and wipe it down, but you should be all right.
Yeah. So for those who are listening to the audio only version, the question was, I want to know if Gene would be cautious of buying on the used market on account of the quarantine stuff. And I think along those lines, they're saying that stuff that's more porous is less likely for the virus to survive there for a long time. So stuff that's not good, plastic, stainless steel, it can live on there for a while, right?
Yeah.
But maybe cardboard, your clothing, of course, still be careful, but it doesn't live on there for as long of period of time. Let's see here.
And if you guys want to know what I did, I went to eBay and I paid through the nose almost a little bit, and got this stuff called Microband 24.
It's not on the approved list, Jana.
No, man, this thing, it's a disinfectant spray, and it continues to kill germs for another 24 hours.
Maybe it's a new one, because it has to be on that list, though. I think no.
Anything that's got a 70%
right.
alcohol situation.
Yeah,
trust me, man.
True.
My mom was doing some weird, like village shit. She's like, "Oh yeah, I took this wipe and I put alcohol on it, and it's all good." I'm like, "Mom, I don't know about that." She's from this small village in Sri Lanka called Kandy, and like it's up in the mountains and everything. And so they always do things like a little bit differently. Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know, that doesn't sound right.
Microband.
Yeah. Anyway.
We have this question here. How is COVID-19 affecting movie release schedules? You like that one, huh?
Yeah.
Who wants to go first on that one?
I've been reading at least 2 movies are looking to go direct to stream. One of them being the new Wonder Woman 1984 movie, and the other one, I think, the James Bond movie, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, they can't.
I love it.
What are they gonna do?
It's an interesting business model. It's been tried before, but they calculated it would be too expensive for most people to afford. But now that the industry is kind of brought to its knees, at least for the foreseeable month or two going forward, I wonder how that's going to change.
Yeah.
So really, they're worried about people just pirating it. Is that what it is? Like if they stream it to your home?
I don't think so. I mean,
No?
as soon as it becomes available for stream, it's everywhere. It's on every torrent site a month or two before it's available. So, I mean, I wouldn't know personally, but I'll tell you this, that I mean, if all of the theaters are closed, how are they going to make money? So I think the only way to do it is to release it for streaming right away. Otherwise, nobody's going to see it.
But real quick though, if they release it in the movie theater only, then unless somebody kind of leaks it out, then you have to watch with like one of those cams if you wanted to download it prior.
For sure, yeah.
Right? And people don't want to do that. They're like, I'll just wait, or I'll go watch the movie if it's something that you really want to see in the best possible quality, right?
Right.
But
I mean,
if they stream it, now you're getting a digital copy that somebody could possibly get, right?
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's the issue. I mean, for me, really, like, let's say if they charge what are they going to charge? $25?
Like $25.
I'm going to pay $25. Easy.
Boom. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know if $25 is going to cut it, and they're going to lose a lot of money just charging $25, because now you can literally pack a household of people in to watch that movie for $25.
Well, not at this time.
Yeah. But originally when they proposed doing this, I thought the licensing fee to do that would be like $1,500.
Well, that's good. You can start selling some more speakers to those people, like setting up these theaters, because I don't know. I mean, $25, I'd definitely pay it. $30, I'll pay it. I'll pay $30. I'd rather watch it here, right?
True.
Everybody would, I think.
Yeah. Not everybody has a nice home theater like Eugene.
Yeah. Well, even any moderate good home theater, the comforts of your own home, to be able to pause it and get your own food and beverages, I think is convenient.
Well, what we used to do is just go to the theater and buy popcorn, and can't even do that now. So, But anyway, I think a lot of this is going to change. A lot of what's happening now is just going to change a lot of things. And if, for instance, I still bought the disc of Jumanji: The Next Level, and I also Trolls World Tour. Look at Angela.
My wife knows what's up. She's on point. That is coming out on direct.
I bought the stream on Vudu because they have it advanced, right? Vudu always does an advanced thing. So you pay for the $25, you have it, and then they offer it for rent like 2 to 3 weeks out. But I still bought the disc because the disc has IMAX enhanced, whereas the stream only has Dolby Atmos. So if I want to see the difference between the two, that's how, I'll still buy it if it has something better. So streaming, physical, whatever, it all works for me.
Yeah, I'm going through the chat here. Sean says, "What's up, guys? Rots rule." What is he saying? So, how many babies born in 10 months? Yeah, good question.
Good question. How many divorces as well?
Definitely not a lot of weddings.
No. All my wedding people are canceling. So, crazy.
Video on demand releases are just standard HDX, so no 4K or Atmos. What?
Yeah.
Come on. Give it all. You know what I mean? If you're gonna do it, go. I don't want to know.
Give me 4K, please.
You can use the up mixer though; it's still pretty good.
Let's see here. What else we got? What do you think about that, Ron? So, Gene, Ron doesn't have a home theater set up yet.
You're a 2-channel guy, though, right?
I'm a 2-channel guy. Yeah.
He's got that M10 though, Gene, with HDMI ARC, and he uses an Apple TV. And I've been telling him, like, get that ARC hooked up, and so you can use one remote for volume, and that'll be good with your speaker setup.
Dude, my TV. So I want you to know, Joey, I tried. Okay, so I went out to the garage. I got my HDMI cable. I came inside, and my TV is so dang close to the wall that I couldn't get the dang HDMI cable plugged in. And I was like, I'm not gonna try to like take this thing off and do all this stuff. So
you have a 4K TV, right?
No,
No,
it's,
okay. Well, look,
it's at least like a decade old, bro. It's
Okay.
it's an older TV.
it might not be ARC then. I don't know.
It might not even have ARC, but
Maybe.
I have this wireless thing. So wireless HDMI, 0 latency, and it's this one's only 1080, but it's pretty good. So you don't have to run a wire. Just pop that in to the side.
So remind me again. So what would be cool about that is that if I had the M10 plugged into the TV, would it plug into the TV or to the Apple TV? It plug into the TV, right?
Well, I guess what we're trying to do, forget what I just said, because actually what we're trying to do is we're trying to get ARC to work so that you can control the volume and you'd have a digital connection, direct connection from the TV or whatever, or for Apple TV, going to your M10 without, I think right now you're using Bluetooth or something like that, right?
Yeah, I'm using Bluetooth. Yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be better to have it wired directly.
I'm with you.
You could use a optical cable too, I think, right?
For what? For ARC?
Optical.
Well, no, just for audio, just to get the audio from from
you
the
can use
source
optical.
to the M10 without going through Bluetooth. You know what I mean? That's pretty.
Stop talking down about the Bluetooth.
Yeah, no, I just saying.
So, Ron, I think you have the M10. That's the NAD, right?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I think that has the new Purify Class D amp that Bruno Puzzi's designed.
I don't know. I thought it. I know that it. I think it was Encore mentioned on the NAD site, but I don't know which module or.
Their new stuff is going to be Purify, which is state of the art. If you look at the specs on it, I'm kind of curious how. I can't wait to measure one of those actually.
Yeah. Bruno's a genius, and I got to say, I love the M10. And one of the things that I like so much about it is, anytime that. Well, let me put it to you this way: George is now 4, and never in the history of New Record Day since she's been alive has she ever said, "Hey, Daddy, check out. I want to listen to these cool new speakers you just brought in." Until the M10, because it's just so easy to fire up Bluetooth and then watch Frozen 2 for the 10,000th time. But she's just like, Daddy, put on the big speakers. And I'm like, well, that's how you get people into hi-fi. That's how you do it. You just make it easy, So she loves it. It's great.
Jerome Williams says, I have the Denon 4500 and I'm confused on the channel level matching source level. Do you have set them both at same dB or what? I think what you're referring to is how you can set the source level. So if let's say if you have a source that's for some reason louder than the other ones, you can adjust that. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, you have input attenuation on each input if you need to. If your cable box is louder than your Blu-ray player, for example, you could accommodate a change in that. I don't know if that's what he's talking about.
Do you set them both at the same dB? No, you just adjust it to, so they're at the same level, right? So
They
it's going to
default
be
at
hard.
0. They each default at 0, but if you hear a perceivable difference between inputs, then you can make an adjustment.
Sure. Yeah. Don't do it during a commercial though. It's always gonna be louder.
Oh man, those are so loud.
Hey,
Let's
Joey,
see.
I did want to answer that question though. So while the movie thing hasn't really affected me, I'm a big Pearl Jam fan. They're like my favorite band, and their new album is out Friday. And I don't know if I have this right, but I think it's one of the first albums that is actually mixed for Dolby Atmos. And one of the local Harkins was doing like a presentation of the entire album mixed in like Dolby Atmos. And I was like chomping at the bit to check that out. And then that was canceled. So I was going to say that has had an effect on me that obviously I can't do that. And I don't have Dolby Atmos out there. So yeah. Anyhow.
That's good to know. There's a few people that are doing Dolby Atmos actual mixes of music. A lot of electronic stuff though.
But
Pearl Jam,
none of it
awesome.
is streaming in Atmos.
No.
That's the big gimmick right now between Tidal, Qobuz, and all those streaming services. You're getting a kind of virtualized Atmos mix for headphones, but it's not doing it for home theater stuff.
Not the same.
At least not now. I don't know any hardware that's doing it now.
Yeah.
See some people asking about this thing. This is not a Chromecast. This is called a Nereus. It's a wireless HDMI transmitter and receiver. So I use this for my projector, so I don't have to run a long cable.
Ah.
What
And
else?
some
we
of
got
those
here?
long cables don't work, man. I had a 30-foot that I was using for this Vava projector, and I was trying to pop it into like you told me to change it to HDMI 2.0 to get 4K.
Uh-huh.
That thing's not transferring 4K in that 30 foot cable. So I had to buy like 3 cheaper, like 15-foot cables just to see.
Well, you gotta get the $20,000 HDMI. That's the way.
You have to have a
make it
battery
work,
on
right, Gene?
it. You need a battery.
Battery, and then the cable lifters. And
Yeah, that's what it probably
else?
was. If you probably would have done that, it would have worked.
It would have worked.
But
it's only 12 feet from my AVR to the projector on the floor, but I only have 6-footers. Anyway.
yeah. I mean, long HDMI run you might have issues. So I think I have like a 30-foot HDMI. My old one would go in and out.
Oh.
Right? If I was streaming like 4K 60 or something, it would go in and out. And then so I ended up switching to an optical HDMI, and no problems from here. What do you use, Gene?
I have DVI gear, believe it or not. I have an HDMI cable that's about 35 feet long, and I put it in this house 15 years ago, and it still passes 4K. But it's like a garden hose. It's like 18 gauge.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so that would be like a Cat 1. It would be Cat 1 certification. I also use Blue Jeans. I have really good luck with Blue Jeans.
Yeah, I've used Blue Jeans. I like that stuff.
Man, we got a lot of questions. Blue Sound Power Node 2i versus NAD M10. Those are different things, right?
Yeah, I think if I'm correct, I mean the NAD M10 is really an integrated amplifier at its core,
Right.
and then it has the feature set that I think that you're going to find within the Power Node 2i. I think it gives you that same feature set. So I don't think if I'm correct, it's not the same product.
Yeah, the Power Node is like I have the Node 2i. The Power Node adds like an amplifier so you can power 2 channels from it. I think those are two separate like those are two the NAD M10 and the Blue Sound Power Node 2i are two completely different priced, and specific things. Like you got that touch screen and the gorgeous display on the M10. The Power Node is just like a little white or black box with a little light on it. That's it. It's a streamer. It's a streamer that powers 2 channels.
But so it does have an amplifier in it. Okay, that's kind of cool. Oh,
hey, real quick side note. Did you guys see that they're doing that Rune stuff for the Sound United products, Denon, Marantz? I don't know if you saw
that press release today.
Yeah. But it's not Rune ready, right? There's a difference. It says Rune. What does it say?
Rune prepared.
Rune, something like that.
So Rune prepared, Rune ready, Rune endpoint. I don't know how many more variations.
It has to be. I think it has to be connected with USB. So anyway, I
okay.
just wonder if you guys saw that. Mark says, "Hey Gene, any chance of clipping the signal if you boost the channel too high?" Are you talking about Gene's mic again?
Oh, am I clipping?
No. I'm just messing with you. I'm messing with you. He's asking about.
He's like, "Oh, my clipping." I love it.
I gotta do it, Gene.
How many Mike Gene modes or Joe
he changed the question actually, so you might want to put the new question on.
Oh, what is it?
Let's see. So I'll get to it. I'm just kind of going down the line here.
Oh, okay.
David Carlson he's one of the moderators over there at Budget Audiophile. Sorry if I'm putting you on blast. Use of in-ceiling speakers for surround sound heresy or acceptable. They're just trying to egg you on, I think.
Yes.
I mean, if it's the choice between no surround speakers or putting them in the ceiling, I think it's in ceiling is the way to go. And there are speakers like Paradigm has speakers that actually angle the baffle, so it direct that sound better towards you. So you could still put in ceiling speakers for your surround and still have Atmos in your ceiling as well. And that's in fact what I'll be doing in my family room system when I build this Audioholics smart home. If the housing market doesn't collapse in the next 3 months.
No. Here's the real question though. In-ceiling surround speakers, Gene, or the bouncy Atmos? Which one?
Oh man!
If you had to choose between those two, that is the real question.
Gene's gonna blow a gasket here.
Bouncy house speakers are a last resort. That's all I'll say.
This man is
what did
recovering.
You say in your video, Gene? What did you say? It's like playing pool with sound.
Yeah, if you want sound to come from a specific location, put the speaker in that location.
Let's see here.
You're just trying to get my temperature up.
I know. Hey, I'm helping fight that virus. He's getting so pissed right now. That virus is just getting. He's just beating that by
You got,
yourself.
hey, are you working out at home, Gene? You're doing some
Today I
exercising?
did some curls. I have some dumbbells at home. I have a bike and I have the rubber band stuff. So I've been
Oh,
just doing. My wife won't let me do too much. She sees it. She sees if I'm sweating. She's like, "Slow it down. You don't want to reactivate."
mm.
You gotta relax. You gotta rest a little bit too. You know?
Yeah, I'm just
I'm
not
over
that.
here. I
I'm
wanted
not
to
that
help
guy.
you set up the new mic, and he's like, "Hold on, I gotta go work out, do some curls." I'm like, "What the? I'm not even sick, and I'm not doing any curls."
You're enjoying yourself.
Right. So what is this? Yeah. So always set the source to 0 decibels and go from there. If it's too low, bump it up. Um, yeah, yeah. I think that's about right. What did you say? When did you say, Gene?
I'm sorry, I was looking at the other questions.
Oh, I think he's still referring to that source level. He's saying start at 0 dB.
Yeah, I don't even know how far the bump up goes. Usually it's a bump. It's a bump down. I think maybe they only give you 3 or 6 dB total to go up, so you'll be okay. You're not going to go and clip anything. I think there's enough margin in the volume control IC circuits to make sure you'll be okay. If you hear clipping, just back it off. I mean, you shouldn't be boosting it if your source is loud already.
Let's see here. Should we ask another one of the questions that we have here? Let's see here. I don't want to break the bank on an AVR, but don't want to have regrets either. What AVR would you recommend? I guess there's no price point in there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I got this question yesterday or 2 days ago, and that's kind of a tough one because breaking the bank means so many different things to so many different people. I like the Denon X3600H as far as growing into it. It's on sale right now for $899, down from $1,100. And I think Onkyo has the 830, which does the same thing. They're both 9-channel. They both have pre-outs. They both have IMAX enhanced along with the DTS:X and Dolby Atmos. And I think it's on personal preference. I know some people like the Onkyo. Some people have issues with the HDMI. Some people like Denon. Some people don't like Odyssey. It's just kind of like it's almost a toss-up.
Really? So what price is that? 3600.
The one advantage of the Denon though is you could do a preamp reassign. So if you want to have
right,
if you want to have the front channels go to a surround back channel, you could have dedicated preamp outs going to a 2-channel amp, and it's disconnected from the amp circuit. You can't do that on the Onkyo.
Gotcha.
And that's not.
Oh, there you go.
So that's the advantage.
What price point is that, Chana?
That's at 900. It's at 900 now, $899. I'll drop a link.
So would you say around the $1,000 price range?
Yeah.
Gene, what would you say is like the best bang for your buck? $1,000 AVR.
I mean, I would say that the Denon for the $899 that Shauna was saying, I think that's the best bang for the buck if you plan on expanding, if you plan on using external amplification for your front channels. But Yamaha has got the 1080, which is a really good receiver. The new Onkyos are really good. I think they have pretty good amp sections in them, and their HDMI stuff has been worked out because now they're with Pioneer. They've acquired Pioneer, so that's pretty bulletproof. I haven't looked to see if there's been any new releases in the last month or two, so I don't know all the model numbers off the top of my head. But
so
the Denon,
I have
the Denon one I really like.
I have the Denon X4500. Is there any point where when you spend a certain amount, it really jumps up to like another category? Let's just say in the Denon lineup, even.
Yeah, you definitely. The problem with the receivers that are $1,000 and less is they put a lot of nanny circuits in them. So because they don't have enough heatsink area, if you start hitting 4-ohm loads on them, they're going to start, doing their protection circuits. They're going to turn their fans on. So there's some advantages to spending more. If you're not going to use external amplification, the better models do tend to give you, more heatsink area, so you get more power capability, bigger power supply kind of stuff. 4500 is probably a better built receiver than the 3600 because they had more budget to make that receiver.
I've been meaning to ask you also. We all know that the Marantz stuff is very similar to, a particular Denon model a lot of times, right? Except for that HDAM circuitry. What are your thoughts on that?
Usually what you wind up doing for the same money you buy for Marantz versus a Denon is you get the lower end Denon in the Marantz, but you get the better analog circuitry in it. So I don't know. I have kind of contentions about that until you get to like an SR8012, which is really a unique product because they put a bigger power supply, bigger
Right.
heat sinks.
That's a monster of a AVR.
Yeah, I
too.
love that, but it runs hot. I'm going to warn you guys if you're getting an 8012, which they just discontinued, so the 8015 will be coming out soon. But the 8012 is a beast, and it's a good sounding receiver. It's got really good power. The Marantz gives you that guarantee that it'll give you 70% of the power with up to 7 channels driven, which is a really good spec. Most of the Japanese receivers in that price range can't say guarantee that, especially the lower end Yamahas. But dollar for dollar, Denon gives you a better deal.
Would you say that is audible though? That change in circuitry, HDM chip? Because I've had both,
I
and I'm
honestly,
not sure if I can hear a difference. I don't
okay,
know.
I've had HDAM in their PM11S3 and the PM11S4, which is their like $5,000 integrated amp, which is their best current product. Well, now they have the P10, but I measured the HDAM from those 2 generations, and the actual older one measured better than the newer one. And I showed this to them. I'm like, "What's going on here?" And they just gave me like a roundabout answer. So,
Basically, they said,
yeah, I don't know. So you
Get
could
it?
measure it with a $40,000 analyzer, but can you hear it? That's another question. I know there's people out there that love the Marantz sound, and some of that is because they remember the nostalgia of Marantz from the 70s and 80s because they made some of the best 2-channel receivers on the market. In fact, you can go out now and buy a 70s vintage Marantz receiver on eBay and spend $1,500 on it when it only sold for $500 in 1970. So
Wow.
that's testament to the brand, to the the brand recognition. Whether or not it's audible, I'm going to say it's maybe under really controlled listening conditions. If you have a good room, good speakers, and really good hearing, you're in your 20s, possibly, but I'm going to say probably not in most cases.
Because I always see in the forums they're like, well, if you like if you like music, if you want to listen to music, go with the Marantz. If you're gonna just be using it for home theater, go with the Denon. I see that often, and I'm like,
The Denon and Marantz receivers sound more similar than they do different compared to different brands because they're sharing many of the same components.
right, same components. Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew you'd have a good answer for me.
I hope it's the right answer. I mean, that's just kind of logical, but
Well, who else can say? Well, I measured them, and this is what I mean.
yeah.
Yeah. Not too many.
I
people.
measure stuff and it doesn't become audible. I measured that Yamaha preamp, the 5200, and it had some problems that I found on the 2-channel outputs, on the XLR outputs, but it still sounds phenomenal. So I could show you the measurements. This is why you have to be careful when you're looking at somebody that does reviews. If they have those measurements and they have the test gear, the measurements look great to have, but if they draw the wrong conclusions from the measurements, it could be damaging to the product.
Which that's a good way to segue into this question here. What should someone look for in a trustworthy audio reviewer? Subjective, objective, objective measurements, subjective opinions. What should someone look for?
The problem with the so-called objective measurements is there's a lot of people out there that will just stick a microphone in a room, measure a speaker, and they think this is the actual response of the speaker. So it depends on how careful people are with their measurements. That's why when we do measurements of speakers, we take them outside and we do listening window response. We give it a directivity index. We do what Harman does when they evaluate speakers. And it takes more time to do that, and it costs more resources to do it, but you want to have an apples to apples comparison. So I think measurements are good to a point, and I think subjective opinions are good to a point. Someone that has a lot of experience, a lot of diversity of products under their belt. I think it's kind of a balance between the two. I wouldn't go all the way to the science side where all people do is do measurements and they tell you if a product is good just based on measurements. And then I wouldn't go all the way to the subjective side where people think it has chocolately mid-range and it's flowery and they use lots of adjectives to.
I've never heard that before in my life.
My wife heard it from the bedroom, or from the kitchen, So I think that you have to strike a balance.
You know what I said once? I said that this one subwoofer against another subwoofer, they shook the wine glasses hanging in my kitchen the same amount. So I
That's your test.
I mean, like, how am I gonna hear something that's hitting 5 hertz? I don't know.
So April's coming up. Maybe what you should do for April Fools is just come out with a review that's just purely, chocolatey, you know, light glistening off the rooftop type of.
Well, you know what I did last April Fool's is I basically said that there was a difference in sound quality in cables,
Oh yeah, I remember.
and people were bashing the video. And they only you could tell they only watched the first 3 minutes of the video. They didn't watch the full 20-minute video. And I loved the comments. I mean, I should have done a video just on the comments.
I didn't watch that video. It popped up on my feed. I'm like, wait a minute, what is he talking about? I just dismissed it altogether. And then like I finally watched it and I was just like, oh, duh, April Fools.
Yeah, I'll figure out something for April Fools for sure.
Ron, what should somebody look for in a trustworthy audio reviewer? Like, what would you look for?
Man, I keep thinking about this question. I mean, heaven knows I've made mistakes over the 6 years of doing this. And when I started, I kind of fell into the trap of scripting everything, including my impressions. And it's difficult. At least it was difficult for me not to move in the direction of flowery words, especially when you're like, it's like you get lost in the art of the script. You're now
Right.
just writing something that sounds pretty. And that's great and all, but one of the reasons why I don't do that with impressions anymore is that I think that I was moving in the wrong direction. I think that when you just speak right into the camera, especially like after you've just, finished your last session or whatever, I think it's harder to move into that direction. And so you just say how you feel. And that works better for me now. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but that just works better for me in my channel. When it comes to measurements, I think that Andrew Jones said it best was, I have no problems with measurements. I have problems with the people or with the way that people talk about measurements. And I tend to agree, because in my own experience, and I've learned a lot about measurements, even gated responses, and trying to do it as well as I can. I've tried outside, in the field behind us and indoor using, proper gear. And the hard part for me is interpreting what it is that you see. And like as an example, I'll be doing actually after we're done with this, I'm going to be walking through a breakdown of the SVS Ultra, and I have my own measurements. And one thing that I noticed with that speaker when it came to taking a look at the waterfall is if I moved the microphone a little bit, and I mean, we're talking like a smidge, I noticed that there was what appeared to be stored energy popping out just based on the slightest little tug. And so you start thinking like, man, is this now an environment issue? Is this like the room? Something is going on that I can't quite wrap my head around. So without getting long-winded, I think that it all comes down to, take what they have to say, with their opinion with a grain of salt, and then take a look at how they talk about measurements. And the way that I'm choosing to talk about measurements is a big disclaimer. I'm not an engineer, and I'm doing the best that I can. I'm giving you what I got, but don't think that this is now something that you can rely on as something that would be done in an anechoic chamber. And for me, that's the best that I can do with my channel. That's my answer. So,
Chana D.
What's funny is I was only watching YouTube to hear what the newest keyboard would sound like. That was pretty much it. So I didn't really go onto YouTube to look for speakers or headphones or anything. It was more like, oh, Dave Smith Instruments put out a new Prophet 8 or Prophet 5. What does it sound like? That's pretty much all I used YouTube for. Didn't start actually looking for reviews on audio stuff, because for me, it's just back in the day going to all these stores with my dad, that only sold Macintosh. I didn't know what the heck that was, and B&O, and that's pretty much it. And then when I went to speaker stores, I would listen to, and he would tell me what he's listening for and this, that, and the other. And he's like, did you hear that? I was like, oh, kind of, yeah. And then and then going into every store, would I really talk to the salespeople? No, because they probably didn't know what they were talking about 60% of the time. So I would think that a lot of tech, after watching YouTube and watching reviewers, a lot of tech reviewers review things like speakers, and they have no idea what they're talking about. Like, I'm like, really? This soundbar sounds awesome, really? You know, because Boston Acoustic came out with soundbars in '97, where you'd have to have like a full-on rectangular room so it can bounce the sound around. And you're telling me that does that in your big ass living room that's got nothing on the sides? I'm like, I guess it just really depends.
So why should we trust Techno Dad?
I don't.
I
definitely don't.
I don't trust myself sometimes, you know. Like, I mean, I don't know. Ron asked me this, and I told Ron this a long time ago. I feel like I'm the accidental audiophile. My dad was into Bang & Olufsen. I grew up playing my Metallica tapes on his Nakamichi Dragon, with going into his Bang & Olufsen system. I didn't know what any of that was. I just knew it sounded great. And when I went to other people's houses and I heard their stereo, I was like, why does this not sound so great? And that's when I was, you know, asked my dad, and he's like, and then he took me around shopping to these hole in the wall places, like, you know, hole in the wall places, like back in the 80s. And he was trying to, you know, tell me the difference. And then, you know, I started playing piano at the age of 9. And
so you actually play, you know, music. You can make music. You can, so that you're coming at it from a different angle, I guess. Yeah,
I produce music, and when I'm producing a track that has one song that has 20 to 25 tracks, which are different layers of each song, you know, each of those has an EQ range, and I go in and shape the EQ for each of those so they sit properly and have a good balance.
You're just trying to show off now.
Stereo spread. That's all I do.
Tune in to Chana when he does his DJ thing. Then you'll see what he's really about. Yeah, you got crazy over there last time.
Oh, man, it was so much fun mixing all kinds of stuff. I was taking requests. Here's the beautiful part. Tidal. I updated my DJ software, and I can stream everything from Tidal into the DJ thing, and I can manipulate it, slow it down, change the key, do everything I could. Like normally if the thing was inside my DJ system. Crazy. But yeah, so I was taking requests. I was like, hey, you guys.
You're going Saturday?
Saturday? Yeah, we'll do it again on Saturday. I don't know.
Sounds good.
2 or 3 in the afternoon.
David Carlson, he's starting trouble. Is what David Carlson's doing? That's what he's trying to do. I'll take the bait. Let's go. So Amir is he runs.
Wait. Hold on. I want to hear Gene, and I want to hear from you on that question. I'm curious.
Because this is related to this question, I believe, because it came in around the same time.
We'll get to Amir in a second, but I'm curious what you guys have to say.
So I think so. Amir, he runs Audio Science Review. He does a lot of measurements on. He started doing amps, and then recently he started doing speakers, I think. So here's the thing. So to answer this question, I didn't get a chance to answer this. What should someone look for in a trustworthy audio reviewer? I would say look at some of their past reviews. Is everything great? If everything's great, then how do you know? You know, you have not everything's gonna be perfect. Right. So if somebody's not willing to say that, you know, the flaws of a speaker, amplifier, whatever they're reviewing, maybe you might not want to listen to them when it comes to buying something, maybe just for entertainment. But if you're trying to make a decision, you want to hear the pros and the cons, right? You want to be able to judge for yourself. The other thing is, like, for me, I just kind of don't care. You know, this is what I do for a living, but integrity first, right? I figure if I lose my audience, if they don't trust me, then I don't have anything. You know, I'm just talking to nobody. So I can make the best videos in the world, but if I don't have an audience, somebody people who trust what I have to say, then it's useless, right? So, in saying that, let's talk about Amir. So, all right. So here's the deal. I reviewed the RB42s, and I liked them. $150, $129 at the time, and I thought they were awesome.
What brand is that?
The Mica RB42s, crazy, right? $150 right now for a pair of speakers. They sounded great. I've demoed them. You know, they're awesome. You know, that was my opinion. I measured them, and David Carlson went and posted a measurement that I did on Audio Science Review, where I think Amir didn't really like the way they sounded, right? And so the thing is, I think my measurement was very similar to his, It's just the conclusion was different, right? And so I think what I look for in a reviewer is, of course, I would want somebody who does measurements. That's why I listen to Gene, because he does measurements, right? So that's important to me. That's one data point. I also listen to people who are good at explaining it, just because I want to see how they explain it, And sometimes they just point to the same thing. Both the measurement and what they're saying is pointing to the same thing. I think it's very important, though, and this is what I do in my reviews, is I try to make it clear what is something that I've measured, right, versus what is my opinion. You have to be very clear about what's what, right? You can't say, so here's the graph. What this means is that these speakers suck. No, you can't say that. You know what I mean? What it means, you just say, here's the graph. This is what's happening here. In my opinion, the speakers suck. You know what I mean? You can say it like that, but you have to be very clear. And in response to what Gene said about, doing the measurements properly, when I do my measurements for my channel, it's not meant to sell that speaker, right? I'm just showing you what I'm hearing, right?
Yeah.
With all the issues in my rooms, like, hey, look at this is what's happening in my room, and here are all the problems. You can see it in the graph, and that's what I hear. I'm judging based on this, so I'm trying to give you a clear
be careful with
perspective.
that, because what you measure in your room, you're not actually hearing what that microphone is showing you. At base frequencies, that's true, but above that, your brain is way more sophisticated. Your ears are way more sophisticated.
Nah, you're wrong, Gene.
One frequency response. You're a smart guy.
I don't disagree with Gene, but I do measure in a lot of different places, and I use a spatial average. I do something called a moving mic measurement, something that I learned from Charles Sprinkle over there at Cali Audio, formerly JBL, and it's a method that he used to use, that you use for theaters, where you have to try to get a good sound for a lot of different seats. So I think I get a good idea. I can get a better picture of what is happening. Maybe it's not perfect, because like you're saying, my ears and a microphone, they react differently, right?
Your brain especially, yeah.
Yeah, the brain is different, but I think it's better than no data point is what I'm saying. So I always say, take my measurements with a grain of salt. It's just just something to look at. At least I try to be consistent from one review to the other, but I'm not here trying to say like this is exactly what the speakers do. Absolutely, right? That's what I'm saying.
One thing
Anyway.
I think is important is I use the principle of Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually the right one. When you look at Amir's reviews and he says a $10 dongle measures better than a $5,000 processor, you have to question whether, is he jumping to false conclusions? Is he doing the right measurements? Is he taking into account the big picture? This product does a lot of different things. It's not just one device meant for one thing. And from what I've seen on his reviews, it's like it almost like he goes out of his way to bash a product, and you don't get any subjective listening impressions from him. It's just all the measurement looks bad, so it's got to be a bad product. But that said, I know the guy is very intelligent. I think he was like really high up at Microsoft. He's got the best test gear. He's got, a state-of-the-art audio precision like I do. He's got actually the 2-channel version, which has got about 15 dB more lower noise floor than my unit. And he's got Kipple now to do speaker measurements. Yeah. So I commend him for having the ability to get this equipment and to actually go and have people send him all these products to measure it. But I think his results, I think he's too absolute in his results. And I think you have to be careful, because you could lead to false conclusions. Like, for example, when I measured that Yamaha piece and I saw those problems with the measurements, I could have said, this is a piece of shit. Don't buy this product. It's terrible. Yet I go and hooked it into my rack, and the processor sounds amazing. And I had the older version that measured better. And I actually liked the 5200 better than the 5100 because of certain things that it does that the 5100 didn't do. So I didn't use my measurements to declare the product as good or bad. I use it as a guideline to show that there's potential problems, but our ears are not as sensitive as my test gear.
Yeah, you know what? I want to make sure that we don't come off as like bashing, because I do like the direction he's going. Anytime somebody's putting out the effort to measure stuff, I think that's a step in the right direction. I would just say, if I'm talking to you, Amir, I would say make sure it's clear to people what is a measurement, what is objective versus what is just your opinion, because that's fine. You know what I mean? I want to hear people's opinions, but I think people need to know what is what, because I think, for me, I'm always looking at measurements. Sometimes I'll go to the measurements. I'm like, I'm confused, right? So if I'm confused, I can imagine other people would also be confused, and so they're relying on you to translate what is happening. And so if you mix in your opinion there, I think people might confuse your opinion for for objective measurements. That's all. That's all. Anyway, make sure to check him out. What is it? Audiosciencereview.com. Yeah, I think he's doing a good job.
A quick little tangent on this measurement situation. I did the video for the Node 2i by Blue Sound, and somebody commented and saying the DAC in there, even though it can do the first fold or unfold or whatever you call it for title MQA files, the DAC doesn't measure that well. And then he linked to this article, and so I actually sent it to Blue Sound folks, and they were like, "Yes, we are aware of this," and they didn't measure in the right way, I guess is what they were saying. And they were also came back, their engineer sent a response for her to send to me, and it was basically that the DAC could have been, I guess, better or measured better. However, they have restrictions that are placed on them from companies like DTS and Dolby to have their DAC perform in a certain way so that they can get licensing for these companies in their machine. So it's more, not just, there's more to it than just the measurements that a lot of people don't know. And they're like, oh, this is crap. In that article, I would not recommend this because the DAC is just shit. And it's not necessarily that situation. It's that they have to conform to these standards for licensing issues.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is perspective also, right? So if something is $150 for a pair, it's not going to outperform some LS50s. It shouldn't even be close, right? But if you're talking about somebody who only has $200 to spend, they're awesome. You know what I mean? So perspective, I think that's also important. We've got a question. Jeremy Strong, looking at getting into real home audio clips, RP600Ms seem to be really good for the money. I worry about sounding too crisp for my sensitive ears. Is that something that can just be EQ'd? I just recently reviewed these, and I would say it's always better to cut than to boost. So if the highs are there, yeah, you can turn them down. But I would say tone controls. Yes, you're not against those, Gene?
Tone controls are fine because it's a shelving filter, as opposed to trying to do auto EQ at high frequencies when the microphone itself isn't very accurate above 10 kilohertz, and the way we hear is much differently than what that microphone is showing you. Definitely tone controls for high frequency correction, or tapering down if it's too bright.
What do you think about spatial averages when it comes to measurements? When it comes to measurement in your listening position, have you tried those? Like using REW, using.
Not to promote my own channel, but we had over an hour discussion last night on that.
Promote away.
Go to Audioholics YouTube channel. We have a 2-part series on room EQ and how it affects the speaker sound. Spatial averaging is fine for below the room transition frequency, but above the room transition frequency, things are a lot more complicated, and you have to kind of watch what Matthew was talking about in that video, in those 2 videos.
So when you were doing that, are you talking about like Odyssey, where it does multiple measurements, or some of these other ones? Because the way I'm talking about is moving mic method, where you're running pink noise,
but you're still not accounting for how the speaker integrates into the room with the reflections. It's a lot more complicated than just taking a speaker measurement in a room and saying this is what it's doing. If you just take an average over a certain area,
we're looking at power response.
You can't do that in a room, though. You can't. It's very hard to take the room out. That's why you really have to take the speaker outside and get the anechoic data from that speaker. If you had that anechoic data and fed it into your processor and then did room EQ and did an inverse transfer function of that, it's possible, but nobody's doing that yet. D-Rec's not doing that. Trinov's not doing that. Odyssey's definitely not doing that.
Well, I don't care what the speakers do. I'm saying, let's say
You
if you're
do
trying
care
to,
what you do care what the speaker's doing. You have to know what the speaker's doing before you do full frequency room correction, or it's a crapshoot. It really is.
okay, so that leads into this next question. But so here's the thing: if I'm trying to correct for my listening position, right?
Hmm.
You're saying, what are you saying specifically that I have to? You're saying
I'm
something about
saying
inverse, and I was like, okay, bye bye.
nobody's doing this. So I'm saying right now you should be doing correction for bass. And you should have, in order for bass correction to be effective, you need to have multi-sub. You can't do it with just a single sub because you're only going to correct for one spot. EQ does not change the seat to seat variance. The only way you're going to lower the seat to seat variance so that every seat is a good seat is to have multi-sub properly placed, properly time aligned, and properly level matched. Then you could go and take EQ and you could take away all of those standing wave problems that you measure below 80 hertz.
All right, so what is the problem if I do it this way? So again, I'm running a room EQ wizard, I'm running pink noise, and then I'm using the RTA. So I'm not using the measurement, the sweep, you know, the way you'd normally measure. I'm using the RTA and I'm having it take an average over a period of time. And I'm actually moving the mic in the meantime. Of course, you're trying to make sure you're not getting any handling noise, but you're physically moving the mic in a circle and trying to, where your head would kind of be, right?
Mhm.
So a spatial average that way. Have you tried that way? And what is wrong? What am I missing?
You're talking about full range or just bass?
Full range.
Yeah, like I said, you can't do that because the microphone cannot distinguish what the room is doing versus what the speaker problems have. If there's resonances in the speaker or if it's caused by room anomalies, it's just too complex for that to be effective. You could try it if you like the sound of it. It could be better if you like the sound, but it's if you look at what we did in that in those two videos, you can get that on-axis frequency response better with room EQ, but it messes up the entire response of the speaker. And you could see before and after EQ, and it could cause more problems at the crossover frequency. It could cause of the speakers. It could cause more amplitude of resonances in the speaker. Generally, it doesn't improve things. Measurement wise, it doesn't improve things.
So you fix one aspect of it and make the others way worse.
Yes.
In some cases.
Yeah. And this is all Harman's done this research before. We have. It's like just nobody's really done a good job documenting it to the public. But those two videos we did yesterday really go deep into that, and I think you should definitely take a look at that, and it'll answer your questions.
I think that's right, because someone asked me, hey, you know what? I have the RP 600Ms, right? And I also have the UB5s, and I'm running Odyssey, and the UB5s sound harsher to me after the room correction, right? And so I was thinking about it. I'm like, why would that be the case? Because I know that the UB5s are way more laid back on the top end, right? So why would they sound more fatiguing than the RP 600Ms, which are brighter? And so I thought about it. I'm like, I think what's happening is Odyssey is trying to bump up the highs on that UB5, and it's trying to do stuff that it's not designed to do.
So
it's
think
kind of
about
like
that. Think about that. If it's boosting the highs on those UB5s, which is a concentric speaker, right? Concentric drivers tend to have dynamic limitations. So if you start boosting 10 dB at high frequencies because Odyssey thinks it needs that boost, you could be driving that tweeter now into distortion where it shouldn't be driven like that. The RB5 or sorry, UB5, what is it?
UB5s, the ELAC UB5s.
Okay, so those are less sensitive than the clips, so you need more power to drive them. So now you're cranking the volume up, you're EQing the high frequencies. Right. You're causing dynamic compression that you shouldn't have had just by doing that EQ.
I hear you. So my answer to him was try them both in pure direct and see if it's still the case.
Yeah, so your question here is different. Your question here says, do you guys think room correction software is good enough to replace acoustic treatment? The answer is a definitive no. So if you start with a bad room and you try to EQ, you're going to get bad results. If you start with a good room that has better passive treatment, so the room is not so echoey, you have a reasonable control of your RT60 time, you have a special modal control in your room, you might get better results with the EQ. It's the same thing when you say, hey, I could take a bad speaker or a mediocre speaker, make it a good speaker with EQ. That's also not true. If you start with a bad speaker, the EQ results are going to be worse than if you started with a good speaker and then EQ that.
So it's like a junk in, junk out.
And a
kind of
good
situation,
speaker should need
right?
EQ above bass frequencies. If you get a really good speaker, if you look at the video again that we did, if you look at the Genlex that we show the measurements for, you look at like a JBL M2, which has an incredibly flat on axis and a very evenly tapered off axis response. That doesn't need EQ. So if you go and run auto EQ on a system like that, it'll either make no difference in sound or it'll make it sound worse. Full range I'm talking about.
Very interesting. Ron, I know you want to get in on this.
Yeah, no,
Let's
I
see.
mean, this was my question. I just released the NADM10 review. And in that review, I talk about Dirac and what I've discovered with Dirac, at least in my room, in my experience. So I'm giving my opinion, is that if I set up a curtain and I'm only correcting lower frequencies, let's say 0 up to 80 hertz as an example, then that seems to sound better than just letting Dirac run the full gamut. If I let it run the full gamut, I'm so I'm giving my opinion. I don't think that I'm hearing the same clarity as if I back it off and only have it correct, for the lower frequencies. Now, one disclaimer here is I have acoustic treatment. So I've spent money on side panels and panels up above me and things like that. And I know that's helping. And I don't have a whole lot of issues in my room. But nevertheless, I would say no, I don't think that it is at a point where it can defeat just acoustic treatment. I don't think that it can. I don't think it's there yet. That's my opinion.
No, and you found correcting below, you said 500 hertz, right?
Actually, in my room, Gene, I do 80, so 0 up to 80 hertz is what I'm correcting, because I have a couple nulls like right around 60, so it seems to kind of even things out a little bit, and I have 2 subs. Yeah.
And there's some of the room correction systems like Anthem Arc defaults to a 5 kilohertz bandwidth, and you can go down from there. And I've messed a lot with Arc, and in my room, I found it worked best up to about 200 or 300 hertz, or actually maybe 500 hertz. But when I went to 5 kilohertz, I just didn't like the sound. It seemed like it tried to make things too focused to the center, where it just sounded unnatural, and I lost kind of the width of the sound stage, at least from what I was hearing.
What you just described is exactly what I noticed when I let Dirac run the full gamut. Is I seem like I ended up with a more focused center image, and I lost out on a bit of the sound stage. That's exactly what I was hearing.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you're messing with the speaker's power response that you can't account for because you're doing all this stuff in a room.
Yeah.
You don't have enough data on the speaker.
Here's a question for you, though. Before we move on, I want to ask this because I'm thinking about it. Gene, would you say that in a room that is awful, really, really bad, and they don't have the option of doing acoustic treatment, but they do have the option of doing some kind of software treatment, are they better off at least doing that, or should they? I was trying to think about that when I did the NADM M10 review. Is like, well, what if you don't have any options of acoustic treatment? Whether it's, your better half is like, no, you're not putting panels on my wall, or
no, EQ is not the magic. EQ is not the hero you need.
Yeah.
What you need in that situation is you need to find a clever way to tame that room with natural stuff. Whether
there
it's
you go. Couches,
diffuse. You need to add mass to the room. Like, for example, I sold my theater chairs because I'm getting ready to do a move. And as soon as when I did that, and I have acoustically treated room, as soon as when I got rid of those theater chairs, I'm like, oh my God, the sound is terrible now. Those chairs were acting like bass traps in around between about, I'd say 80 to 150 hertz. And now the bass is not as tight in the upper bass. So I had to go and I had to put some stuff behind the chairs I have there now to kind of compensate for it. But there was a definite difference in sound just by changing things in the room, but reducing the mass of the room made an effect.
So I'm going to take Ron's question and I'm going to change it up a little bit. And I'm going to say, what is the point where that room EQ, what's the point where it does make a difference? Like if your room is, the last 5%, is that okay? Like what would you say? When is it useful?
Room EQ always makes a difference, whether or not the question is whether or not the difference is beneficial. And
that's what I mean, though.
Yeah, the answer is it's more beneficial if you don't do full correction, and it's more beneficial if you start with good speakers, and it's more beneficial if you limit the correction to the bass frequencies, or maybe a little bit, maybe to 5 kilohertz. Because like I said, you're pointing that microphone straight up at the ceiling. And at 10 kilohertz, even with a compensation filter, which most of them don't have, it's still not very accurate. So this it tends to over EQ at very high frequencies, and like you found out with that ELAC situation, it made the sound worse.
So okay, all right. I'm just trying to
I know
take it in.
people don't want to hear that. I know people want to think, room correction is the answer to everything.
Yeah, right.
Room correction to me is a potential pandemic for bad sound.
Well, nice choice in words, Gene.
I speak from personal experience.
Oh man.
Hashtag stay home.
Yeah.
Shall we open this up to the live chat and the phone?
Yeah,
Gene, you haven't taken a phone call. Who wants to call and harass Gene since he's
work?
recovering?
Gotta get him all fired up.
Yeah. See?
Michael asked, I had bass problems at 70 hertz. Did it fix it? Michael, yes. And if you watch that review, I actually show the before and after with at least the SVS Ultras of what it did with evening out the bass. So you can watch that and check it out.
Hey, Gene, are you having fun with us?
Oh, yes.
All right.
I'm getting hungry, though. I have to admit, it's been over an hour now. So,
yeah. Well, whoever wants to make the last call, and we'll call it a night. There's the number on the screen.
Are the lines open?
It should be. Let's see here.
I'm
Give
shocked.
us a call. Say hi. Ask a question.
At least somebody prank phone call them.
Yeah, I don't care. Whatever it is.
This is Saul Rosenberg.
So someone says, Gene, I have a Yamaha, and how does it ensure I remove the YPow results? The way to undo the YPow results is to just go to manual or bypass. The one thing I like about the Yamaha receivers is the manual PEQ, which is excellent if you have REW and you have a mic, like Joe Intel does all the time. You can do a lot of good with your bass with manual PEQ. Better than YPow, because YPow sucks at doing bass correction.
And that's how you know he's an honest reviewer.
Yeah, it sucks. I love Yamaha, but YPow is like they haven't evolved it in 20 years. Come on, guys.
I had the A2080 and I didn't like the YPow.
Yeah, don't use it, but they're manual. They finally put manual PEQ, and I got them to do it down below 20 hertz, where you have, you need correction below, in the 20 hertz range, because that's where your bass modal problems are. They finally have it down to 15 hertz, and I'm so happy about that.
Gene, did you see that little device, that little DSP device from Parts Express? It's just for the sub. It's like super cheap. It's like $50, and it's DSP just for the subs. So you have your PEQ. I think it's like $50, and it's just an inline thing that you can throw in there, so if you're subs.
It's like a mini DSP kind of.
Yeah.
So is there software? Is it software? Is it how do you control it?
I think they have some sort of phone app. I haven't really looked at it, but
I haven't seen that.
It's so inexpensive. I'm like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I'm all into budget.
The only thing I would be worried about that is just make sure it'll pass at least 2 volts RMS without clipping. Otherwise, you're going to potentially add distortion to your subs.
Right. Well, I think we're good. I want to make sure that Gene gets his food. He needs time to recover. Gene, hey, thanks for being on. It was a pleasure.
Me. Yeah,
really a pleasure.
Likewise, guys. We should do this again sometime.
Dropping knowledge, and I just want you guys to know. Look, we all get along. Sometimes we disagree. Gene gets into the comments and tells me all the stuff that I'm doing wrong, and I'm like, all right. You know what I mean? But I defer to Gene. Gene's awesome. Been doing this for a long time.
I'm an elder now, right?
An elder. I've been
elders.
Yeah.
I started off as a fan, so it's a pleasure for me to be talking with you and have you on here. That's it. You guys have anything else you want to add?
I only have one quick thing that I just want to throw out there. So I gave my ELAC B6.2s to a close friend of mine, his first HiFi setup, and he bought my recommendation. So that's why I'm asking. I recommended the Yamaha RN303. He only had like $300 to spend. And so he bought this thing from Amazon, and I guess that one of the channels only when streaming does not work. And he asked me about it. I'm like, well, clearly it's defective. Send it back, get a different one. But you guys are going to laugh. Check out this response. It's really funny. They said, let me just pull this up. It says, This receiver can't be used with 6 ohm speakers. I can't make this up. This receiver can't be used with 6 ohm speakers. Lowest it supports is 8 ohms. It may have damaged the channels. I have never seen a receiver that would work with ELAC speakers before. This is a very unusual issue, but we'll go ahead and exchange it either way.
Who said that? The people that sold it to him?
Yes.
That,
I messaged Andrew and I was
Wow.
like, damn you didn't make the ELACs for Yamaha receivers, you jerk. He was laughing. He was like, what?
oh man, that's not it. That's not the right reason. But okay, as long as they give him his money back, it's probably
Yeah,
it's probably back for sure.
Yeah. Well,
Pleasure
thanks
having
again, guys.
All right, guys.
No problem. Thanks for having it.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
All right, do the outro, Chana. You always do the best ones.
What?
Outro.
All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us here at the Daily Hi-Fi Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to all of our channels so you do not miss out on the next live stream. That's right, guys. Stay at home, stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Peace.
Keep listening.
Ah, I got it in there.